Hey, welcome to the Tales and Tunes show, Stories and Songs. We really are fortunate today to have a fine friend of mine. I want you to welcome Marc Lendler. Marc, welcome.
Hi, Steve.
Welcome. Making your time to come and do this show. And what we try to accomplish here is to let you know a little bit about what it is for a musician to gain his crafts, especially when you have a profession and you work and it's a hobby and it's an interest that we do, but we love it and we do it for the passion and to play the instrument and to share with people. So I'll chat with Marc here a little bit about his music, and then Marc will give you the opportunity of hearing a number of songs that he will perform. So Marc, when did you get started and what instrument did you play when you started in this business here of music?
Well, I am a classic baby boomer in terms of age, and like everybody, I won't say everybody, but like many people, I started fooling around with a guitar when I was a teenager.
Yep.
And I was not very good.
Yeah.
And no matter how much I played, I never got any better. And for a long time, I would stop and start and stop and start. And finally, I said, well, if I'm really going to not learn how to play the guitar, why don't I, and if I've stopped anyway, why don't I start the instrument that I really like, which is a dobro. And I always liked the sound of it. I always liked it in music that I had heard. And so I began to learn that in my early 50s.
In your early 50s, yes. So that's getting started a little late.
Quite late.
My
and
gosh.
I wish that I had taken it up when I was in my 20s, but I didn't. So I decided, well, there's no point in not playing it now, even though I was very late.
Oh, you're very wise. I admire you for that. Why don't you tell the folks a little bit about what this instrument, a dobro, is, and give us a little background in it, Marc.
Sure. Well, first of all, for people who haven't seen one, this is a dobro, which looks very much like a guitar with one big exception, and that is the music comes out from a metal plate that is behind here and reflects out and increases the volume. A dobro was invented by John Dopiera, the name shortened to dobro. And he did it because in the 1920s, he wanted to make an instrument that could be heard over other instruments in string bands, most of which are much louder than a guitar.
Indeed.
And so invented the dobro in various different forms. The modern form of a dobro generally has the metal plate underneath, these speakers coming out here, not speakers exactly, music coming out here also. And the other difference from a guitar is that the strings, I'll put my hand under the strings, they are so high off the neck that you cannot press them to the fretboard. And therefore, it has to be played with a metal bar. And there are various forms of metal bars, but the way most dobros are constructed, they can't be played by pressing strings to the fretboard with your fingers. So a dobro is played, all dobros are played with this metal bar. It's a little hard to see. I'll hold it closer here. And the bar is slid along the strings, which creates the twang that is characteristic of this instrument and that dobro players really like the sound of. And that is good in some ways. I'm sure Steve can tell you how hard it is to make certain chords on the guitar. Well, you don't have to do any of this stuff with a dobro because C, D, G, all made with the bar. Now, of course, it's not that simple, but that is one advantage to the dobro.
But Marc, how is the strings tuned? In a regular 6-string guitar, the tuning is E, A, D, G, B, E. What is the tuning on that instrument?
Different, because it's played with the bar. it has to be tuned to an open tuning.
And what does an open
And
tuning mean?
The open tuning means play a full chord.
I'm gonna play
I don't mean a chord. Play it without holding down a chord. Discord, it is not an actual chord to a guitar tuning. A dobro is a chord played to an open tuning. This is tuned to G. The standard dobro tuning is G, and there are other tunings, but if you just run into somebody with a dobro, they're going to be tuned GBD, GBD, an open tuning.
Let's play it together on 4. 1, 2, 3.
Both G chords. Steve has to hold his down with the fingers. This is open. One of the jokes about a dobro being easy to play, which is not really, but one of the jokes is you can play a dobro easily. If you drop it, it plays a song. If you kick it, it plays another one.
Yeah, for sure. Mark is exactly right. In order to play a regular six-string guitar with the frets, you need to push each string against the fret, which will then make the note within the chord. So a G chord with the tuning that's on this is this. But for Mark, to play a G chord, it is. So it's fascinating, but Mark can get sounds out of that instrument that I cannot get out of this.
They're different. The quality and nature of the sound is different, but also the ways of creating different notes and so forth and sliding is different on a dobro than a guitar. They're related instruments, they're not identical.
So Mark, when did you got to your first instrument when you were 50?
Yeah.
And is this it?
This is it. This is the one I bought when I started.
And where did you get that?
Well, first of all, I was very fortunate to find in New Haven a teacher who was a Grammy award-winning dobro player named Stacy Phillips, late Stacy Phillips now. And so I got to consult with him about what I should get. And obviously, just starting out on the dobro, I didn't need a super high quality instrument. They can go up to $10,000. And I didn't need anything like that. So I went to a very well-respected dobro maker named Paul Beard, and Paul Beard suggested a dobro that he got from Korea, which he then reconditions and sells, in this case, now this was 20 years ago, I think this was about $650. Be a little more now, obviously, but still, I consider it a really good bargain to get one, and I love the sound, and I've never gotten another one. If I were a professional, professionals have 8 or 10 instruments, and if I were to pursue that, which I wouldn't, I would have to get a higher quality instrument. But for what I play and enjoy playing, this is fine.
And like Mark is saying, that is not an acoustic electric, right? It's not an electric, you don't have a...
Oh, no, it can be plugged in.
But in most cases, when playing with Mark, and perhaps later, he doesn't need to be plugged in because that baby makes a lot of volume, tremendous amount of volume. And it's great to hear it. And you can understand in a band that has 5 other instruments, generally a bluegrass band, this would need to stand out. And it does beautifully. Who were your musical influences at that time, Mark?
Well, in terms of dobro playing, which I had heard a lot and I loved, but I didn't know really how it was used. I kind of entered this somewhat ignorant of what it was that I enjoyed playing or listening to. Stacy Phillips was the person that I took lessons from the day I started to the day he died about 4 years ago. And he knew everything about all the music that I like to play and knew everything about other kinds of music. The most famous dobro player playing now is Jerry Douglas.
Jerry, yes.
And
Super.
He plays on dozens and dozens of records, apart from having his own band, doing his own solo material and so forth. But people who want a studio musician inevitably try to get Jerry Douglas. He goes on the road a lot with Alison Krauss and her band.
Yes.
Not the only great dobro player around, but if the public knows any one dobro player, it's Jerry Douglas.
Yes. And a wonderful band, too, with Alison Krauss. Union Station, I think, is the name of the band. They are great. So what do you do with the instrument now? Where do you play? What is your interest in reaching out with your instrument?
Well, I've never, as Steve pointed out, I do have a separate profession. And it's not music, and I'm not a professional musician, nor have the talent to ever dream of becoming one. So I play with friends, I play by myself a lot, play for individuals, play in the settings that Steve is familiar with, in open mics and situations like that, sometimes with people, sometimes by myself. I hardly ever sing, and I'm not going to sing today. So it's mainly instrumentals that I play and work with.
And Marc, I know when he does his presentations and his performances, is very knowledgeable about the stories behind the songs and their history. And it's a wonderful learning experience to hear that about these compositions, because the ones that are in our history, our musical history, many of them have been around 80, 90, 100 years, Marc?
Yeah, some of the things I'll play are over 100 years old.
Yeah, and there's a reason that they have lasted that long. They generally are simplistic, straightforward melodies, and where the lyrics are included, they're about regular folks, about home life, and life in general. So the instrument, this in particular, if you were to hear a bluegrass band in particular, and that's where I associate this instrument in most cases, although it's a wonderful addition to any type of groups together, you've got banjos and fiddles and guitars and mandolins and a bass in the background, but without this instrument, doesn't quite give you the impression of a bluegrass production. But then again, a wonderful instrument to accompany either a story or song for that matter. And when Marc gets set, he's going to do a number of his songs for you, and with the instrument and accompaniment. Marc, at this point, is there anything else you'd like to say about the instrument before we go to our next segment?
Well, what it has always impressed me about it is its versatility. I play a variety of music, and many people play additional types of music on the dobro, but I play blues, bluegrass, country, gospel, Hawaiian, and the instrument fits all those, or can be made to fit all those different kinds of music. Stacy could play literally everything. He could play with a symphony orchestra on the dobro.
Well, I know we've only touched the surface of this with Marc, and I thank you so much, and we're going to hear you tell some stories and do some songs. F. G. Thank you, Marc. Now, you're going to be treated to some wonderful tunes and stories from Marc Lendler on the Tales and Tunes show.
Hi, everybody. Well, as Steve said, I'm going to do a few things on the dobro for you, and one of the things I'm trying to do is to illustrate the different kinds of music that fit the dobro. You'll see as we go along, I'm going to say a few things about each of the songs, but I decided to pick things that illustrate the different sounds that a dobro plays well. Okay, the first one is literally the oldest song that I know, and that is Red River Valley. And the reason I know it's the oldest one that I learned is because I picked it up from my father when I was 3 years old, and he was playing the piano, which he used to do by ear. Red River Valley, because Gene Autry made a big hit out of it, Montgomery Clift starred in a movie called Red River Valley, which was set in Texas, and most people associate it with cowboys. What I learned when I looked into it a little more is that it really is about the Red River in Canada. Nothing like the Red River in Texas. And Canadian fiddlers and guitar players created this song, and then it kind of worked its way southward until it got to the other Red River in Texas, and that's what most people associate with it. I always did until I looked into its background. So this is Red River Valley. Anybody who was learning the dobro, back when I started or before that, had to learn how to play. It's called I'll Be All Smiles Tonight. It's similar, has a similar kind of slow and old-time feel to it. started off, as many dobro songs actually do, dobro instrumentals actually do, as in instrumental form, as a fiddle song. It was, some people place its origins in Ireland. In any case, it came to Canada, some of the northern province and eastern provinces of Canada, and was played as a fiddle song, often still is, but a lot of dobro players have picked up on it over the years. It's called St. Anne's Reel. And by the way, it's played usually at a very fast tempo. And I can't play it quite as fast as professionals can. And it became so fast that it became eventually known by the name Satan's Reel, because of the difficulties it posed for dobro, first for fiddle players, then for dobro players. So St. Anne's Reel. Okay, that was in the fast-flowing single-note style of fiddle players transposed onto dobros. And there's a reasonably large crossover between fiddle songs and dobro songs. My dobro teacher was also a fiddle player. And bands sometimes will swap off leads between fiddle players and dobro players. I'm going to play for you the only piece of music that I ever wrote, and that's a euphemism because I don't really write music. I don't read it or write it. So let's just say I intuited this one and played it over the years. So it really doesn't have any particular name. I will call it My Rag because it's ragtime, and I wrote it My Rag. Okay. Start again. Dobro also can be used to play blues. It can sound, in spite of the kind of sweet, twangy sound of the dobro, it can be used for pretty down-home southern blues. And so I'm going to play one now. This song is called Milk Cow Blues, first recorded by Kokomo Arnold in the 20s. And most people don't know blues songs. By the time they were recorded, they had been played dozens of times in juke joints, and so nobody knows exactly when the song started or who was first associated with. But Kokomo Arnold first did it. Since then, it crossed over a little bit into Western swing music and country music, and a little bit into bluegrass music. And has been done by people as diverse as Bob Wills, sort of the champion of Western swing, the creator of Western swing. Elvis Presley did a version of it. Willie Nelson has done a version of it. B.B. King has done a version of it. And Eric Clapton has. It's gotten into rock musicians' repertoire who lean toward blues a little bit. Country bands where this is often played on a steel guitar and so forth. But this is really, in some ways at least, the starting point is Kokomo Arnold's original version of it in a more bluesy format. blues singer born in Mississippi but raised in Louisiana called Sylvester Weaver, wrote a song which actually became fairly popular called Guitar Rag. As I've told people, you can't say guitar rag, guitar rag. And it was then picked up in the mid-1930s by a young steel guitar player, not this kind of steel guitar, but a pedal steel guitar, named Leon McAuliffe, who played with Bob Wills. And Leon McAuliffe more or less made it his own song. And now usually when people introduce this song or play this song, it's called Steel Guitar Rag, but it is 90% the original by Sylvester Weaver. Tekla Badaszewski-Baranowski in Poland wrote a piano tune, which I believe was for people who were beginning the piano. And it didn't make a big hit of any kind in this country until Bob Wills, again, who's important in the development of a lot of popular music in this country, heard it and said, you know, I think we can make this into a Western swing song. And from then on, it became played by a lot of fiddle players, and as with other things that I've pointed out, it then crossed over from fiddle into now it's basically done by dobro players. You will hear bands doing it and everybody takes a break, but when people do it solo, they're generally doing it on the dobro now.
It helped in the evolution of the dobro. It's Hawaiian music, which was played with a guitar turned on your lap and played with a slide, and has the kind of distinctive lilt that you hear in a dobro created by the slide, but wasn't originally done with this reflector which creates the sound of the dobro. So it married very well to when the dobro was invented in the mid-1920s. And I'm going to do the most familiar Hawaiian song. It's almost a Hawaiian national anthem, and I'll give you a story about it. It's called Aloha Oi, and it was originally written by the woman who became the last queen of Hawaii, Queen Liliuokalani. And it was written before she became queen. And she wrote it as a pop song, and apparently it became fairly successful in Hawaii as a pop song. Aloha Oi means farewell to thee, and it's about a young woman ending a love affair. Then she became queen of the old Hawaiian kingdom. But the United States annexed Hawaii, first as a territory, then much later as a state, just at the turn of the 20th century. And among the things they did in order to make the annexation seem legitimate is they placed Queen Liliuokalani under house arrest. Now, it was not a torturous experience. She was given most of the possessions that she had, and among the things she had was a piano. She had always been a musician, so she spent her time composing. She took her old song, Aloha Oi, Farewell to Thee, and turned it into a remembrance of a lost Hawaiian kingdom. And however many times you've heard this song, and most people have heard it a lot, even if they don't know quite what it is, that's what it is. It is, in essence, a remembrance by the Queen for the future to remember there was at one point a Hawaiian kingdom of which she had been the queen. So this is Aloha Oi.
part everybody knows. And the story of the creation of Amazing Grace is this. It was written by John Newton, a British sailor who was raised in a church-going family, but became, the word you would use is probably dissolute, getting into every bad habit one could get into: drinking, card playing, prostitution, other kinds of behavior that polite society frowned on. Worst of all, John Newton was the captain of a slave ship and made many voyages back and forth. And of course, if you've ever studied the slave trade, you know that the movement from England to the United States or other countries in the Western Hemisphere, which was almost all of them that had slavery, it's called Middle Passage. And it was the most horrifying part of the entire three-part slave trade. And John Newton was the captain of those ships. Then one night, a story goes, but it's been verified in some way that at least parts of it are true. John Newton, who was piloting a slave ship, navigating a slave ship, ran into a terrible storm. And it appeared that the boat was going to sink with everyone in it, including himself. And Newton later recounted that that night he prayed for the first time in his life and made a promise that if God would spare the ship, then he would reform his habits. The ship was saved. It made it through the night. Newton was able to return to England and immediately went back to the church. Now, it would be nice, some people hearing this think that Amazing Grace is an anti-slavery song. It's not. Newton actually captained slave ships after that experience, but he gradually gave it up. Newton went on to give testimony to the British Parliament from his experience of Middle Passage, which only somebody who had experienced it could give. And it was one of the reasons that Britain became the first, England became the first country in the world to ban the international slave trade. And that was about 20 years after he wrote Amazing Grace. It is not an anti-slavery song, but I've always said this, the most famous words of this song are, once lost, but now I'm found, once blind, but now I see. And it's not hard to go from that moral reawakening on John Newton's part to the crucial role that he was later to play in the movement to abolish, the successful movement to abolish the slave trade in England. It took some years, but he was eventually convinced that the only way to fully express his new Christian beliefs was to testify against the international slave trade.